Hi, this is Pete with Chopper Design, maker of leg up landing gear. Today we'll talk about installing one on a GL1800. Take the bike and put it on a lift. Remove the left saddlebag, the seat, the left side cover, the left crash bar, and both muffler covers. Our first step is to remove the center stand from underneath the bike. The left bolt is normal, the right bolt is a reverse thread. Once the center stand is out of the way, we move on to installing the leg wheel support bracket. We use a 4x4 to hold up the back end, and we make sure that the uprights clear the catalyst. Tilt the mount forward and use the chrome bolts with a washer through the 90-degree brackets and then a washer with the flat on it up against the old mounts for the center stand. Screw these 3/8" bolts till they just come out on the other side of the casting on the bike. These screw in very hard, but just get them to where they just clear the outside so you can start the nuts on the inside. We're going to leave them loose for now. The next step is to raise the back of the bracket and line up the bolts with the uprights. On the right side there's a spacer that goes on the outside of the bolt. Use the stock washers. Just get them lined up. Once you're sure, put a little blue Loctite on these bolts and insert them, and again leave them loose for now. Once we have them started, we can tighten the nuts on the chrome bolts you just inserted a few minutes ago. It's hard because the wrench hardly fits, but tighten them up as best you can. They don't have to be very tight, just snug into the nylock. Once that's done, any other bolts, we start with the bolts holding the 90-degree brackets and tighten those, and any other bolts on the mounts get tightened. Then the uprights get tightened. On the right side we're going to show you the spacer and how it lines up, and then we'll tighten that bolt down very well. This is final tightening because we're going to cover this up. We need to get these fully tight. There's the spacer, the bolt, and the washer. Crank that down nice and snug. Again, this should be Loctite on these bolts. The next step is to cut, mark, and reinstall the muffler covers in front of the mufflers.
You want to be outside.
For the uprights, we have to mark to the outside of both uprights, cut up about 1.5 inches. These holes, or slices as they are, won't show once the bike is on the ground. You cut it, use a file to take the sharp edges off it,
Give it a couple of rubs.
test fit it, then reinstall it, slide it onto the rubbers, be careful not to knock them off, and then reinstall the Allen head bolt in each. This happens on both sides of the bike, as you might imagine. Now we move on to installing the bolts required for the upper actuator bracket. Remove the bolt that holds a left saddlebag bracket on and install a long bolt supplied in the kit in that hole. Screw it down tight. No Loctite needed here because there'll be a nut on it. The bolt will screw all the way down and stick into the wheel well area. Tighten it up real good. Then get the left crash bar. Use the stock bolt on the right side, a short bolt going into the frame rail, and a long bolt on the left side, again going into the wheel area. We have 10 minutes on YouTube to do a video, so there's a lot of detail we're leaving out. Refer to the manual. It'll give you much better information to help you through the process. Here Ben tightens the other bolt. Now we have 2 bolts inside the wheel well. Here you can see the bolts we just talked about. Find the upper actuator bracket and slide it onto the bolts. Once on, a lock washer and a nut is screwed onto the bolt. Screw these nuts on as far as you can by hand. They'll go most of the way down. It's difficult to tighten with a wrench in this area, so tighten it down as far as you can with your hands, as Ben's doing now on the frontmost bolt. This is just inside the muffler if you're not sure. And then use the wrench and crank them down hard. You don't need Loctite on these bolts, but you need to get them very tight. This is the last shot you have to get at them. There's even a slot in the front of the bracket to allow you to gain access to the frontmost bolt to tighten it up. Again, it's not easy, but a little patience and you'll get it done. The next step is to install the wheel leg assembly, as you see here. It's all assembled. You slide it carefully under the bike, being careful for the paint. You'll find the 2 bushings on the big thick piece of metal slides into the bracket you mounted under the bike. You line the holes up, as Ben's doing here, and you find the 3/4 inch stainless steel axle and start sliding it through the bracket and then the legs to the other side of the bracket. We use a rubber mallet to tap it through a little bit. It shouldn't go through too hard. And then you go to the other side of the bike, put the button head with the washer into the other side of the axle with a little Loctite to keep it from moving. Once done, you make sure that the legs are in no sort of bind. They should move very easily, as you see here. Now we move on to installing the actuator. Slide the actuator under the motorcycle on the left side and up to the bracket you just installed. Find the slot, line it up, the fat side is up and the wire is up, and we put the bolt through the actuator. We're going to use 2 nuts on this. The first nut is tightened down to the aluminum just barely, and then the second nut is tightened down hard against the first. This will keep it from coming out and also making sure it doesn't bind. Then move on to the bottom of the actuator, raising the legs to meet it. You may have to extend the actuator, as covered in the manual, to make this work. The bottom actuator bracket is likely loose here. We'll tighten it later during the adjustment period. And again, this gets 2 nuts. Don't crush the actuator, it's fiberglass at that end. And we'll lock the 2 nuts against each other and it'll be on for good. Let's move on to the wiring harness. We'll give you just an overview here. We take the 12-pin plug off the wiring harness and start pushing it through into the box. There's a grommet there. We remove it and then reinstall it later. Then we take the rest of the wiring harness and kind of lay it under the seat area. Go to the box, reinstall the 12-pin plug. We can plug the computer in. Once that's accomplished, use the Velcro, all covered in the manual, show you how to do it. Once the plug is done, he moves on to the right side of the bike and works with the proximity sensor, which should be mounted to the bracket. And he feeds that wire up from the right side, making sure it clears everything. No binds on these wires. Again, as you go to tie them down, make sure it's clear. It's not going to get hurt by the seat or anything. And he works this up into the underseat area. And once it's up there, he starts plugging all the pieces of the wiring harness together. The actuator bracket could be moved up into the underseat area. The power supply wires can move from the seat area down to the left side of the bike. Again, he plugs everything in. We're not tying it down quite yet. And here we take the fuse box cover off and take the 2 ring connectors. Remove the top one for the orange wire and the bottom for the black, as you can see here. Tighten them down good. We pull the 5-amp fuse out right there and replace it with a 10 or larger fuse to protect the system. We cover the fuse box, and then we can start tying the wires up. Again, this is covered in the manual. Plug everything together, tie it all up. We assume you've already pulled the wire from the handlebar to the underseat area. And here you can see he's wiring some of this up, or tying it up. Moving quickly now, we mount the switch box on the handlebar, and we're going to do initial system testing. Once it's mounted, he holds the left button down for 3 seconds, turning the system on, and you'll notice both lights blink. The accessory has to be on the bike. Now the lights start blinking. If he hits both buttons simultaneously, we go into down stop mode. Hit the left button, the wheels go down. The right button, they go up. If they do, you're in good shape. Then we move on to mounting the proximity sensor and testing. And here we put a piece of metal by it with the bike on. We know if it lights, it's working. We remove the bracket underneath as described in the manual and mount temporarily the proximity sensor. We need to get the left edge of the proximity sensor near the inside edge of the rim and the right edge near the outside edge of the rim. He jacks up the bike, and now we're going to mount the wheel weights, 1 at each spoke. This will make them basically even around the bike. There's 5 spokes. Mount them towards the middle of each spoke. Glue all 5 on, then see if as they go past the proximity bracket, you'll adjust it here to go on and off as it does. And he does, then he tightens the bracket up. Reassemble everything on the motorcycle, take it down, go through the maintenance mode here. Ben shows you that he's got the down stop set. Now we go to the up stop. He makes sure it clears the pipes. Again, everything's covered in the manual. And once we're sure, we give it a little ride. Up they come. And then coming back, we make sure they come down. Here they come down very nicely. Good luck with your installation. Leg Up Landing Gear, brought to you from the folks at GoodGuysPowersports.com. That's GoodGuysPowersports.com. Thanks for watching.